Welcome to the Widow's Peak, peeking into life beyond widowhood. Our mission is helping the widowed be transformed in the faith while finding joy in life again beyond widowhood. Mike and Gail Peterson met 2 years after each of their spouses passed away. Their heart for the Widow's Peak, bringing hope and teaching the truth of God's love to those that are drowning in grief. But from the beginning, God seemed to be pointing them to Africa. Even before knowing why, there were 3 thoughts that repeatedly came to mind when they prayed for God's direction: poor widows, Africa, and sowing. They knew nothing about widows in Africa, and they didn't know what these 3 phrases meant until they met Jocelyn, a Canadian missionary, through a mutual missionary friend. Jocelyn oversees a tailoring school in Nigeria, training very poor African widows how to sew and establish tailoring businesses. There are hundreds of millions of widows throughout Africa. Many are young with young children and are often sent to orphanages because their mothers cannot feed or educate them. Widows are abandoned, ostracized from village life and family, and left homeless as their in-laws claim their husband's property and possessions. This widow found an abandoned hut to hide her family from the wild. Often threatened over property, widows run with their children to hide in the slums, making them perfect targets for child trafficking and prostitution. Widows are sexually harassed by their in-laws and even by pastors and church leaders. There seems to be some confusion about the biblical command to visit widows in their distress from James 1:27 and old ancient superstitions and practices. Widows are blamed for their husband's death, assuming that she put a spell on him or some other superstitious reason. The husband's family will sometimes remove the children from the home, leaving the widow completely isolated. No husband, children, village life, home, or income. This widow found an abandoned shed, a home suitable to hide from her shame. So what could God be asking the Widow's Peak to do in Africa? After many months of prayer, the answer began to take shape and the GLOW Project was born. The GLOW Project is a discipleship program for church leaders, examining the biblical instruction and heart of God for the widow. Our approach addresses these issues with biblical instruction by helping church leaders better understand God's heart for widows, His specific instruction to care for her, His warnings for those who take advantage of her, and how to discern the differences between our biblical mandate and the ancient rituals and superstitions that are still practiced today but are not of God. When God's people understand His heart, instruction, and warnings as they relate to caring for widows, future widows should not fall into the pit of poverty that widows fall into today. Our program includes discipleship for the widows. Many widows have never been taught that God loves them when others don't, that He is faithful, and that He promises to care for them. Victim to Victorious brings them overwhelming hope and joy. They are also challenged to seek God's place for them in the church, serving others and one another. Several missionaries and Africans have allowed us to incorporate their widow projects into our training seminar. Newly trained leaders will be able to connect with these seasoned workers already in Africa to collaborate ideas and help in their own work, to establish in-house microloans, to learn a trade and business skills, to build safe, cost-effective homes for the widows and their children. God has brought together African leaders and pastors in the United States, Zambia, Kenya, and Nigeria to help us teach and establish the various aspects of the GLOW Project. Our first seminar, we prayed to find an African man who would understand the concept and value of creating a will to protect his wife. We thought that it would be impossible to find such a man, but God arranged this man, Danjuma, to be our driver on a 5-hour drive from the airport. He not only had created a will, but made arrangements to teach the church leaders in our first seminar about God's design for marriage in Genesis 2. Creating a will was the result of his conviction that his wife is a partner with him in the work that God has for them. When we first met Helen, she had lost her youngest son to a sudden illness, and a few months later, her husband died in a pedestrian accident. Her grief was deep and heavy. This is Helen 1 year later. When asked what led to the joy that she so radiantly shines here, she explained that learning that God is our heavenly husband changed everything. Now, when she is afraid, she closes her eyes and pictures herself at the feet of Jesus. He always rescues, and she has peace again. So are you wondering why you need to know all this? It's to help us raise awareness. It reveals God's heart for His widows, His people, and His church. We're in awe of what God has been doing and what He is leading us to accomplish over the next few years in Africa, here in the United States, and eventually other areas of the world. In order to do the work most effectively, we must extend work to professionals in the field. This conviction has resulted in our brand new professional website, a new logo, a more precise mission statement, and precision branding, a must in today's culture. And it leads us now to a $15,000 project that we have coming up in April, a 2-day video recording in a professional studio in Greensboro, North Carolina, with partners to help us teach each session, and creating a package that's ready for leaders with video workshops, workbooks, and discussion questions. The Widow's Peak and this video project provides opportunities for everyone to meet the biblical mandate to care for the widow and to make disciples. God has given us many specific instructions as to how to care for widows. God has provided something for everyone to give in order for the widow and the fatherless to be cared for. Deuteronomy 18 tells us, "When you are harvesting in your field and overlook a sheaf, do not go back to get it. And when you harvest olives or grapes, do not go over them again. Leave what remains for the fatherless and the widow." Helping the widow also gives opportunities to be blessed. When you're harvesting in your field, leave it for the fatherless and the widow, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. We are praying daily for every person we share our story with. We need Him to show us the people that He has positioned to partner with us in this vital work of the church. Everyone has a part to play in the lives of widows. Would you ask God how He might be leading you to care for widows through this unique ministry? We would be honored if you would partner with us.